There is something deeply wrong with the food you're eating every single day. For 10,000 years, bread wasn't just food, it was the food. It was called the staff of life. It built civilizations, it sustained armies, it fed families. In 1324, in a village outside London, the average peasant consumed 2 to 3 pounds of bread every single day. That's 70% of their total calories. Just bread, day after day, year after year. And you know what they didn't have? Diabetes, gluten sensitivity, irritable bowel syndrome, obesity, none of it. Fast forward to today, you eat one slice of supermarket bread, and within 30 minutes, your blood sugar spikes higher than if you ate straight table sugar. You feel bloated, tired, foggy. 2 hours later, you're hungry again. So what the hell changed? The answer isn't that you're weak or that humans evolved a gluten intolerance in the last 100 years. The answer is that modern bread is not bread. It's an industrialized, chemical-filled, nutritionally dead imposter designed for shelf life, not human life. Let's start with what medieval peasants actually ate. Bread wasn't a side dish in medieval Europe. It was the meal. It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A peasant family would bake one massive loaf, sometimes 15 to 20 pounds, that would last them 3 to 4 days. In 1324, records from England show that peasants were eating 2 to 3 pounds of bread per day. That's roughly 2,000 to 2,500 calories just from bread. And these weren't couch potatoes. These were people working in fields from sunrise to sunset, building cathedrals, surviving plagues, raising families. And here's what's shocking. They were healthier than we are. Archaeological evidence from medieval skeletons shows low rates of diabetes. Obesity was virtually unknown. And despite the harsh living conditions, their teeth, from what survived, often show less decay than modern teeth full of fillings and root canals. So what was in this magical bread? 3 ingredients. That's it. Flour, water, salt, no preservatives, no dough conditioners, no high fructose corn syrup, no calcium propionate or azotocarbonamide. Just 3 things that humans have been eating for 10,000 years. Now pick up a loaf of modern supermarket bread and read the label. 20 to 30 ingredients. And that's for basic white bread. Some varieties have over 40 ingredients. You're not eating bread. You're eating a science experiment. But the problem isn't just what they added to bread. It's what they did to the wheat itself. Because modern wheat is not the same plant that medieval peasants grew. In the 1960s, a scientist named Norman Borlaug developed what he called miracle wheat. The goal was noble: increase yields to feed a growing population and prevent famine. Borlaug won the Nobel Peace Prize. He's credited with saving 1 billion lives. And he did in the short term. But what he actually created was a Frankenstein grain that has slowly been poisoning the modern world. Here's the science. Ancient wheat, the kind peasants ate for 10,000 years, has 14 chromosomes. It's called einkorn wheat, and it's one of the oldest cultivated grains on Earth. Modern wheat has 42 chromosomes. It's been hybridized and genetically manipulated so many times that it's barely recognizable as the same species. And the most important change, the gluten structure. Ancient wheat has weak gluten, simple proteins that break down easily during digestion. Modern wheat has super gluten, complex tangled proteins that your body can't fully digest. This is why gluten sensitivity has exploded in the last 50 years. It's not that humans suddenly became weak. It's that the wheat fundamentally changed. But it gets worse. Modern wheat isn't just genetically different. It's chemically contaminated. Farmers use a practice called pre-harvest desiccation. 3 to 7 days before harvest, they spray the entire wheat field with glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup weed killer. Why? Because dead wheat is easier to harvest. The chemical kills the plant, dries it out, and makes harvesting more efficient, more profit, better machinery performance. The problem, that glyphosate doesn't just disappear. It's in the grain. It's in your bread. In 2016, German researchers tested 14 major bread brands. Every single one contained glyphosate residue. In 2019, American researchers found glyphosate in 19 out of 20 bread and grain products. The World Health Organization classifies glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen. It doesn't just potentially cause cancer. It destroys your gut microbiome, the beneficial bacteria that keep you healthy. Glyphosate kills them. Medieval peasants were eating living food that fed their gut bacteria. You're eating dead food contaminated with bacteria-killing poison. But even if you could get non-GMO, chemical-free wheat, there's still a problem: how it's milled. Medieval milling was done with stone grinding, 2 massive stones rotating slowly, crushing the entire grain into flour. The bran, the germ, the endosperm, everything stayed together. A wheat kernel has 3 parts. The bran is the outer layer full of fiber, B vitamins, and minerals. The germ is the seed packed with healthy fats, vitamin E, and antioxidants. The endosperm is the starchy middle, mostly carbohydrates. Medieval flour included all 3 parts. It was whole grain by default. Modern milling uses high-speed steel rollers that strip away the bran and germ, keeping only the white endosperm. Why? Because bran and germ contain oils that go rancid quickly. If you remove them, the flour lasts for months on a shelf without refrigeration. They traded nutrition for shelf life. They removed everything valuable and kept only the starch. But it gets more insulting. After stripping out all the natural vitamins, they add back synthetic versions and call it enriched flour. They remove 20 nutrients and add back 5 synthetic ones, then market it as fortified and healthy. It's like stealing your wallet, giving you back $3 and calling it a gift. Studies comparing heritage wheat varieties to modern white flour show that ancient grains have 25% to 30% more protein, significantly higher levels of selenium, and much higher levels of lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants critical for eye health. Medieval peasants weren't just getting calories from bread, they were getting nutrition. You're just getting empty starch. But the biggest difference between medieval bread and modern bread isn't the wheat or the milling, it's the fermentation. Medieval bakers didn't have commercial yeast packets from the grocery store. They used wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria, a living culture called sourdough. A sourdough starter is a living ecosystem. It contains dozens of strains of wild yeast and bacteria. You feed it flour and water, and it ferments slowly over 12 to 24 hours. This slow fermentation does something magical. First, it breaks down phytic acid, a compound in grains that binds to minerals like iron, zinc, and calcium, preventing your body from absorbing them. Medieval fermentation neutralized phytic acid, making those minerals bioavailable. Second, it breaks down lectins, plant proteins that can irritate your gut lining. Modern bread, made with commercial yeast that ferments in 1 to 2 hours, doesn't have time to break down lectins. Sourdough does. Third, it pre-digests the gluten. The bacteria and wild yeast break down those complex gluten proteins into simpler compounds that your body can actually process. Modern industrial bread is made with fast-acting commercial yeast. The dough rises in 1 to 2 hours, then it's baked. There's no time for fermentation to work its magic. Medieval bread fermented for 12 to 24 hours minimum. By the time it was baked, it was already partially digested by the bacteria. Your gut had way less work to do. This is why people with gluten sensitivity can often eat real sourdough bread without problems. It's not the gluten, it's the lack of fermentation in modern bread. Let's talk about what happens inside your body when you eat modern bread versus medieval bread. White bread has a glycemic index of 75. Table sugar has a glycemic index of 65. Let me repeat that. Eating white bread spikes your blood sugar higher than eating straight table sugar. When you eat modern white bread, it converts to glucose so fast that your blood sugar spikes within 15 to 30 minutes. Your pancreas panics and dumps out insulin to handle the sugar rush. Your blood sugar crashes. You feel tired, foggy, and hungry again within 2 hours. Do this 3 times a day, every day for years. Welcome to insulin resistance. Welcome to type 2 diabetes. Medieval bread, made from whole grain flour with intact fiber and fermented for hours, released energy slowly. The fiber slowed digestion. The fermentation broke down the starches into more complex forms. The result? Slow, steady energy release. No spikes, no crashes, no insulin roller coaster. This is why a medieval peasant could work 12 hours in a field on bread and feel fine. And why you eat a sandwich at lunch and need a nap by 3 p.m. So why did this happen? Why did we go from real bread to chemical bread? The answer, as always, is money. In the mid-1800s, baking became industrialized. Large corporations realized they could make bread faster, cheaper, and ship it farther if they made a few changes. First, use cheaper ingredients. Whole grain flour is expensive and spoils quickly. White flour is cheap and lasts forever. Second, speed up production. Fermentation takes time. Time is money. Commercial yeast cuts fermentation from 24 hours to 2 hours. Profit. Third, add chemicals for shelf life. Real bread goes stale in 2 to 3 days. Industrial bread with preservatives lasts 2 to 3 weeks. More profit. Fourth, market it as superior. In the early 1900s, white bread was marketed as pure, clean, and modern. Dark bread was old-fashioned and peasant food. They literally convinced people that removing nutrition was progress. By 1980, 3 companies controlled 70% of the American bread market. They had successfully convinced the public that bread was supposed to be soft, white, and flavorless, and that it was supposed to last for weeks without molding. But the human body hasn't been convinced. Your gut knows the difference. So, what do you actually do? How do you eat real bread in 2025? Here are your options. Option 1, buy real bread. First, stop buying supermarket bread. Go to a local bakery, an actual bakery where they bake bread daily, not a grocery store with a bakery section. Look for these words on the label or ask the baker, sourdough or naturally leavened. This means wild fermentation, not commercial commercial yeast, whole grain, or 100% whole wheat. Kun, not wheat flour or enriched flour, stone ground. This means the flour was milled properly. Short ingredient list, 5 ingredients maximum. A real bakery will have bread that goes stale in 2 to 3 days. That's not a bug, that's a feature. It means it's real. Option 2, make your own. Better yet, bake it yourself. I know what you're thinking. I don't have time to bake bread. Medieval peasants worked 12-hour days in fields and still baked bread. You can handle it. Here's the secret. Most of bread making is waiting. Total active work time, about 15 minutes. Mix flour and water. Wait. Fold the dough. Wait. Shape it. Wait. Bake it. The dough does the work. You just have to be patient. Option 3, seek out heritage grains. If you really want to eat like a medieval peasant, find heritage grains. Einkorn wheat, spelt, emmer, kamut. These are ancient grains that haven't been hybridized into oblivion. They have the original 14 to 28 chromosomes, not the Frankenstein 42. They're harder to find and more expensive, but if you have gut issues or gluten sensitivity, heritage grains might be the answer. Many people who can't tolerate modern wheat have zero problems with einkorn or spelt. For 10,000 years, bread was the foundation of a human civilization. It was so important that breaking bread together became the universal symbol of friendship and community. Every major religion has bread at its center. Christianity, give us this day our daily bread. Judaism, unleavened bread at Passover. Islam, breaking bread during Ramadan. Bread wasn't just food, it was sacred. And then we let corporations take it from us. They stripped it of nutrition. They contaminated it with chemicals. They sped up the process and removed the soul from it. They turned bread, the staff of life, into empty calories wrapped in plastic. The medieval peasant ate 3 pounds of bread per day and thrived. You eat 2 slices and feel like garbage. That's not because bread is bad. It's because that bread is bad. Real bread, made from real wheat, stone ground, fermented slowly, baked fresh, is one of the healthiest foods on earth. Industrial bread is one of the most destructive. You have a choice. You can keep eating the industrial imposter and wonder why you feel terrible, or you can go back to eating the way humans ate for 10,000 years. The peasant knew something we forgot. Real food doesn't come from a factory. It comes from flour, water, salt, and time. That's it. That's the secret. If this video changed how you think about bread, you need to watch what I'm releasing next. Why medieval beer was a nutritional superfood, while modern beer is hormone-disrupting poison. Because they didn't just destroy bread. They destroyed beer, meat, milk, and basically every staple food that kept humans alive for millennia. But you can take it back, one loaf at a time. Hit subscribe to learn what else the modern food system has destroyed and how to reclaim real food. Because medieval peasants weren't ignorant. They knew how to eat, and they knew how to thrive. We just forgot.